today we're going to be talking and demonstrating our heel as we make our sock. We'll be making a pretty standard heel flap and then a gusset. There are lots of ways to do heels and toes in socks, so this is just one of them, but it is a pretty standard technique. The number of stitches that you will work on obviously depends on the number of stitches on the heel of your sock, but the technique is pretty much the same for all of them. When we make a heel flap, we stop working in the round and just work back and forth on our heel stitches, which for me are on this back needle. You can put, if you're using magic loop, you can put your front stitches just on the cable, so you have your 2 needle tips to work with. If you are using 2 circulars, you can just ignore the stitches on the front needle and just work using the needle that's holding your heel stitches. The heel of a sock gets lots of wear and tear, so we do some special things to make it a little stronger. For this sock, we're going to start on the wrong side of the heel stitches, so we're going to be working on the inside first. We're going to slip our first stitch purlwise and then purl across the rest of the stitches and then turn. So let me work across my 16 stitches here. When we're ready, we just turn around. So now we're on the right side of our heel. Once again, we're going to slip this first stitch purlwise, and then we're going to knit one. And then we're going to slip one with the yarn in back and knit one. And slip one and knit one. Slip, knit. We're going to do this all the way across. Slip, knit, slip, knit, slip, knit, slip, and you should end with a knit one. So we're going to repeat these 2 rows, the purl side and the knit side, a total of 8 times for our sock. So here is my heel flap. Obviously, we have this asymmetric part because now we're going to turn it 90 degrees to make the cup for our heel. This is called the heel turn, and we do it using a not scary way of doing short rows. We're going to be on the wrong side because that's where our yarn is. So we are going, for this pattern, these numbers are specific to this pattern, although again, the technique is very similar, just the numbers would be different. We're going to slip the first stitch as if to purl, and now we're going to purl over 9 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A little more than halfway. Now we're going to purl the next 2 stitches together, and we're going to purl 1 more. And now we're going to turn. We're going to slip this first stitch on the knit side. We're going to knit 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to do a slip, slip, knit. Now, when we do a slip, slip, knit, we slip a stitch, but we slip it as if to knit, slip it as if to knit. And the reason we slip it as if to knit as opposed as if to purl is because this is part of a decrease. We're going to take our left needle, put it in the front of those 2 stitches, and knit them together. and then knit one more. And now we turn our work. If you look at your heel stitches now, you can see that we have a gap. Now, when we go back and forth across our stitches, we're going to knit or purl as appropriate to one stitch before the gap. And then we're going to use our decrease to connect across the gap so we don't have a hole. So we're on the purl side. We're going to slip the first stitch as if to purl, and now purl to one stitch before the gap. So 1, 2, 3, 4, hello, 5, 6. We're going to purl 2 together, so the stitch before the gap and the stitch after the gap, and purl 1 more. Now we turn. On the right side, we have a gap. So we slip 1, we're going to knit to 1 before the gap. Often pattern directions will be written that way. Knit to 1 before the gap and then do your decrease. In our pattern, it gives us specifics. So we're going to slip, slip, knit those 2 together, knit 1 more, and now we're going to turn. Here's our last wrong side row. We're going to slip 1 as if to purl. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here's our gap. We're going to purl those 2 together. There is no more 1 to purl, so we're just going to turn. Now we're on our last row. Can you see how we've got decreases that are causing this to turn? That's what's making the cradle for our heel. So we slip 1 and we knit across. 2, oops, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Slip, slip, knit. Do not turn. We have completed our heel turn, and you should now have 10 heel stitches on your needle. Now we need to connect our heel to the front of our sock and start knitting in the round again. So to do that, we have to pick up some stitches, and those slip stitches that you made at the beginning of your rows were what is going to make this really easy to do. We're going to use these to connect our heel to the front of our sock using decrease stitches slowly. Your instep needle is always just going to have the 16 instep stitches on it, and we'll decrease on one side of the instep until we're slowly back to our 16 stitches on our heel needle also. We will only be knitting on our heel stitches. We're not going to do the waffle pattern on them. The waffle pattern will only be now on the top of our foot or our instep stitches. So here's how I pick up gusset stitches. I'm going to put my right needle underneath both legs of a slip stitch, wrap my yarn around and pull it through. So there's 1, there's 2, 3, with big yarn it's easier, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. And for the very last one, for number 10, we're going to pick up 10 on each side. You can see we're really close to where we're going to have to work on the front of our instep stitches. I always go down deep so that I don't get a hole. So I'm actually going to go kind of like way down in here and pick up a bunch of strands because then I won't have a hole. All right, now we need to work on our instep stitches. And we're in row 2 of the waffle pattern, which is just a knit row. So I'm going to pull my back needle out and just knit across for this row of our waffle pattern. I want all my instep stitches on one part of my cable and the stitches for my heel all on the other part. So that's why we're doing it this way. All right, so I'm keeping that loop, but I'm pulling this out now. So there's a loop. And now I need to pick up 10 stitches for the other side of my heel here. Just rearranging cable. All right, once again, in this section between the instep and the heel stitches, I'm going to dive deep so I don't have a hole and pick up stitches there. And now go in and pick up my edge stitches, the slip stitches that we did. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, so now you can see I have heel stitches all on one side. You should have 30 stitches here if we've all done this correctly. And then 16 stitches for the top of the foot. So now I'm going to knit over 5 stitches here. And that is going to be my new beginning of round. 2, 3, 4, 5. There we are.